That's Minneapolis, folks. Or is it St. Paul? That was Minnesota just a day or so ago. I'm sure you guys all remember, all too painfully, in summer of 2020, when most of America was suffering the worst of the COVID lockdowns, the radical left and, in general, Democrat affiliated forces in America organized political violence all across the country. George Floyd was the pretext, but the important thing is that people tend to vote on emotions, and the visceral effect on voters of civil unrest, of fear and loathing in the country, has an electoral outcome that the Democrats were looking to achieve in November 2020, which just barely, with the help of a little fraud, they did. And they were able to prevent Donald Trump from winning his second term of office in that election. Now it appears we're back to civil unrest all over again. Wonder if there's an election coming up that might have some bearing on this. And the ground zero at the moment is Minneapolis. But of course, the genesis of all this is the nationwide campaign of hatred being stirred up against immigration and customs enforcement and police in general. And what we're seeing in Minneapolis is what you can expect as long as there is no government response to put an end to it, which obviously for a lot of us contrasts with what we saw on January 6th. But let me show a couple of things here. It's a couple of snips, just in case you haven't heard already. You probably have if you've been on the internet, about just how bad things have been. This is a story coming from Minnesota again, where 5 random white guys eating lunch in Minnesota are reported as undercover ICE agents. And the thing about lynch mobs is they often make mistakes like this. They're going after ICE agents, but they were screaming and yelling at these innocent people. Later on, they claimed it was because they were privileged white males. But that's what's happening. There's video on here. This is all posted on our Twitter page. And just having a casual lunch between 5 Twin Cities software engineers. One says he's pro-ICE, one says he's anti-ICE. The others are on the fence for some reason. Like, you wouldn't think it'd be controversial to support law enforcement because the alternative is anarchy, but nevertheless, that's the perception that the Democrats are stirring in people across America. So so we have random mobs of left-wing activists just accosting random groups of white people in Minnesota. So that's happening. Then we have this lovely post. This is from the Minnesota National Guard, which of course is controlled by the Democrat-controlled government of Minnesota. And they are showing off that they are wearing these green vests so that that they are not the people that you should be stalking and browbeating and intimidating and threatening. And as this commenter accurately notes, we're posting our troops in neon vests, so you only attack federal law enforcement, is essentially the message that they were sending. Here is a more graphic example. This is from looters who have broken into a DHS vehicle that they're now ransacking, and we've got audio for this one, so let's listen to that for a moment, shall we?
Nobody move fast.
You can take the safe out here. Everybody got guns in there. Everybody got guns in that bitch.
This is a longer clip. You guys get the idea. Just rioting and looting going on here, and going on an ongoing basis. Really, we actually got a comment from Donald Trump saying that they would not be, deploying any kind of additional federal military police forces to prevent all-out full-scale riots from breaking out. But if there's not some sort of crackdown, why would they stop? Why would they stop doing this if it's working? And then, as Julie Kelly points out here, and this is important, Nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, came even remotely close to this on January 6th. It is infuriating to watch this legitimate terrorism incited by politicians in Minnesota and Washington take place day after day without consequence. It really is a contrast, isn't it? Isn't it amazing that these keep that on an ongoing basis? Because the reason why they're doing this is because they feel like they have impunity. And maybe they have good reason to, you know, like there's a distinction between Republicans demonstrating in Democrat-controlled Washington, D.C., where not a single one of them could possibly get a fair trial, versus Democrats rioting in Democrat-controlled Minnesota, where they can probably safely bet there will be at least one person on any given jury who will refuse to convict them no matter what the circumstances are. You know, we saw that in which we covered extensively, the Officer Sir trial, where he would have been acquitted by the entire jury, but for one member of the jury who, according to other jurors, absolutely ignored all the evidence and just simply refused to convict him because he believed in the political views of the assailant, Patrick Lyoya. But anyway, not that Patrick Lyoya had political views, but he was a Democrat. He didn't want to he didn't want to acquit any police from using self-defense. Anyway, with all this going on, you would think that President Trump would be turning his full attention to, you know, resolving the situation as quickly and as calmly and as sensibly as possible. Actually, Trump was posting for them to keep on rioting. Oh, I'm sorry. No, that wasn't that was in reference to Iran. That was in reference to the riots in Iran, or Iran is the correct pronunciation, but whatever. He was encouraging all of that. We'll look at that in a second here. But this, I think, is going to be a recurring problem because once again, we're talking this week about the big stories, big things Trump has done, which, guess what, is all about Iran, Venezuela, Greenland, you know, anything but the suffering of the people of the United States. Now, Trump was to his credit, he did visit Detroit the other day. I guess that's a great thing. I suppose he talked to the Economic Club. Someone flipped him the bird and got like $200,000 or something on GoFundMe for his trouble. So there you go. But anyway, Trump, and by the way, Trump's approval rating, I said last week, it takes about 2 weeks for major news incidents to start showing up in the polls. The rolling average of Trump approval ratings is now, it actually hit its all-time low just a few days ago. And that was only, you know, just exactly 2 weeks after the start of the new year, just when Trump started really getting, you know, just after that meeting with Netanyahu, when he suddenly became really emboldened to start, you know, conquering the globe and all that kind of stuff. We do have some Congress stuff to talk about and some Michigan stuff. In fact, why don't we take a moment here before we go through our other stories to show you all the latest in Operation Watchdog and what's happened in Lansing this week, in case anyone's wondering. Light week in Lansing, but of course, go to rescuemichigan.com, go to the Watchdog tools. They're linked on the homepage, and we have this handy tool, 7 days in Lansing, which will show you just the last week of things going on. And you can also change that going back as far as 100 days. But here's what happened this week. Not very much. They had only a few votes since the new year. The Senate's had no votes, in fact, but the House has had a few. Not much all that interesting. The big one that got the news coverage was that they are requiring public schools to have cell phone policies to limit cell phone usage among students. I'm not entirely sure that should be a statewide thing and not a local control issue, but, you know, cell phones in schools are bad. Kids are hooked on them, so whatever. The other major vote this week, to the extent there were any, is this one. A bill to allow employers to require tip sharing, which if you look to see how they voted, you can see the Republicans, almost all the Republicans voted yes. Almost all the Democrats voted no, except for Karen Whitsitt, who, as usual, didn't vote at all. You know, honestly, in a vacuum, I would say this is actually a bad bill because a tip to me is a gift. And what you're doing is requiring employees as a condition of their employment to give something that was given away to somebody else. However, this must be taken in context. And what has recently happened is that the Democrats have forced a law into Michigan using the ballot initiative process to raise the minimum wage dramatically and also to eliminate what's called the tip credit, which allows you to pay waitresses less because they get so much money in tips. And the result is that a lot of people are dining out a lot less. I know I am. I used to dine out almost every single day. Now I go like once or twice a week because all the menu prices keep rising. It's because their labor costs are rising. That's why that happens. So staff gets laid off, of course. The issue is that now, because a lot of people don't know that servers are now making a lot more money because of the mandatory minimum wage going up. The waiters and waitresses are making a lot more money than the cooks are. So that's, I guess, what this bill is trying to mitigate, because it's really bad for the workplace when the waitresses make 3 times what the cooks are making. But anyway, they probably were making that before. Maybe now they're making even more. I don't know. It's been a long time since I worked in restaurants, but I used to be back at the house, but I'm not going back there. Ron Picard says requiring a policy doesn't make sure it's enforced. Well, let's look at the bill, Ron. And here is a nice summary of it. Requires the board of a school district or board of directors to implement a wireless communications device policy that prohibits the use of such a device on school grounds during instructional time. So that is the policy they're mandating. Now, if you want to argue that schools are going to be sanctuary schools for cell phone use, I guess you could. I don't think that is all that likely. I think once a policy is mandated, and state funding might be in jeopardy if they don't follow the policy, then, chances are, because parents might find out this law exists, and if they find out their kids are using their cell phones all day long in school, they're going to complain to somebody, So maybe the school won't want to enforce it, but often when especially for an institution, like, it's one thing for like an individual person to break a law. It's not so easy for a government entity to break a state law. It doesn't happen very often. Mark Ashley Price. Hey buddy, how are you gonna have Mr. Altman and Hassan on again? That's a show we had a couple of weeks ago. A lot of people watched that episode. Probably someday, but nothing particularly urgent about that. We might revisit that topic at some point if we need to, but hey, I'm always here to please. And some people wanted us to do a show about that, so we did. Anyway, getting back to this week in Lansing, some new bills got put in. Not too many. Again, it's the new year, so not too much. Although this one did stick out to me. The Democrats, a Democrat at least. Let's see how many Democrats co-sponsored this bill in the state Senate out of 20 Democrats, 19 Democrats. 5 of them are on as sponsors of the bill to mandate that movie theaters have screenings with, as the bill calls them, open captions, meaning unlike closed captions, they're mandatory subtitles, basically. Obviously for the deaf. But as anyone who's ever watched a movie with closed captioning knows, it can often ruin the movie because you see what's going to be said before it's actually said. It's a matter of preference, I guess. But here is the heavy hand of the state coming in to mandate that every movie theater have subtitles on some of their screenings. So there it is. And it says, by the way, for certain movie theaters, meaning any movie theater with like multiple screens. So there it is. That's it for Lansing this week. Not very much. Yeah, Heather says mandatory closed captioning sounds awful. Well, 5 Democrats didn't think twice before putting their name on the bill. So there it is. So probably won't go anywhere, but it's always good to just see what things the Democrats are putting out there. I don't know if any of those Democrats are in particularly tough seats. Rosemary Bayer, at one point, her seat was close, but since redistricting, it might not be. I don't know. Anyway, that's the exciting stuff going on in Lansing. In Washington, by the way, though, we have had some things happen there as well. So we can take a look real quick at some of the brilliant things that our lawmakers are doing. Ron says even small theaters have handheld closed caption devices. Yeah, well, apparently that's not good enough. That's not good enough for them, I suppose. So, hence that bill. Someone wanted it. In Washington, by the way, let me make that a little bit bigger. There was a vote to fund the National Endowment for Democracy. Remember when Trump first came to the White House and we were all talking about how great it would be that he would smash up all of these left-wing entities that are out policing the world, all the stuff that Trump said was going to end, which then he never did. In fact, the only thing he ended was Doge. Well, here we had an amendment, and it was an amendment to restore, or actually it was meant to defund the National Endowment for Democracy, because apparently they get their funding just put in automatically. So there was an amendment to affirmatively defund the NED, and there you can see every Democrat voted no, and 81 Republicans voted with the Democrats. So the amendment failed, and you can see Republicans mostly voted yes, but of course not remotely enough. And so, as Eli Crane put it, 81 Republicans voted with Democrats to fund this rogue organization that funds global censorship and domestic propaganda. And as I note here, in case you're wondering who in Michigan that was, it was Bill Huizenga, Tim Walberg, and John Molinar. Those were the Republicans, all in safe districts, no less. They aren't saying, oh, I got to vote my district. The people in Midland will be, no, it's not Midland. People in Monroe, that's Wahlberg's district. The people in Monroe will be very unhappy with me if I vote to defund the National Endowment for Democracy. No, they're voting to fund this because they choose to. So there you go. That is one brilliant vote taken in Washington this week. We also have this helpful announcement from AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, that the House of Representatives voted for passing critical, it's always critical, the money's always critical, $3.3 billion to be sent to Israel on top of the usual $4 billion they get, plus, of course, you know, the Golden Dome. All of the Golden Dome is going to Israel, folks, in case you haven't figured that out yet. America has no need for short-range missile defenses. Those are just rebuilding stockpiles to be shipped off to Israel for when they need it. That's what the Golden Dome is all about. But hey, another $3 billion for Israel. Not that you needed it, did you? I hope you guys didn't need any of your money. But you know. And then, of course, there was this lovely one, and thank you for Senator Paul for bringing this to our attention here. This is the vote on the minibus, a little miniature spending bill to keep the spending going in Washington for another few weeks while they figure out what they're not going to do. So another continuation of the Pelosi budgets, because they have yet to pass any budget that's been a novel budget since the Democrats had control. And 46 Republicans joined Democrats. And there you see the roll call. Slotkin voted with the Democrats to pass it. Peters looks like he didn't, strangely. But, you know, he's retiring, so maybe that's why. So, so that is what our Republicans in Washington have been so proudly doing for the past week, voting to fund the National Endowment for Democracy, Israel, and in general, just keeping the Pelosi budget trundling along. So, you know, just saying, next time they ask you for a campaign donation because they need your help, maybe just ask them to go bother Israel. You know, they're the ones that they've working so hard for them. Ask them for the money. So that was Washington this week. Of course, the big stuff in Washington was not anything to do with the United States. It was all about the foreign countries, as always. Oh, and by the way, just so you guys know, the week ahead of us is all about the World Economic Forum. And Trump's going to be going to Davos, so that'll be great, won't it? Oh, that'll be lovely. Lovely talking about all the great things going on all over the world, including our incoming conquest of Greenland. But first, of course, the big story is the aborted regime change operation in Iran. So what in the world happened? When we last left off, there was protests burning all over the country. And as I said at the time, and I stand by that, clearly this was all a foreign-funded regime change operation, meaning U.S. and Israel-supported regime change operation. In fact, this Israeli media outlet just should have admitted it. Foreign actors are arming the protesters in Iran with live firearms, which is the reason for the hundreds of regime personnel killed. And then the Israeli media talking head says, everyone is free to guess who is behind it. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, tee-hee. And if that was not enough for you, of course, there was also this gem from former Secretary of State, former CIA Director Mike Pompeo, who posted, Happy New Year to Iranians and Mossad agents behind them. And he says the regime is in trouble. And here's the exact post. Happy New Year to every Iranian in the streets, also to every Mossad agent walking beside them, he said in a Twitter post. So what happened with these totally organic protests? And well, what happened was the protests stopped. So, well, first let's back up. What started them? Obviously, there was and there is serious economic problems in Iran, and I'll be the first to say, I have no doubt that the Iranian government does not manage their country well. Some people have said that the particular crash of the Iranian currency was the proximate cause, and that was somehow caused by foreign actors. Possibly so, but hey, you know, why didn't Iran just call China and ask them for a loan? They probably could have done that, but whatever. Anyway, there was unrest, and pretty quickly the domestic organic protesters were replaced by the radical armed insurrectionists that were, as we just saw, very obviously funded by the West, by Israel and the United States. And by the way, like, this should not be like a controversial thing to even say when, you know, I mean, we've been talking about doing this for decades now. I mean, here is the Brookings Institute paper, Which Path to Persia, and was it they're talking about? Supporting a popular uprising. Let's have a velvet revolution. Let's inspire an insurgency. We'll support Iranian minority and opposition groups. And then, if possible, let's have a military move against the regime, a coup. Well, last year we had what has now become called the 12-Day War, when there was the surprise Israeli attack, and then that led to, I mean, there's first a very dramatic multiple assassinations of Iranian military officials. Their air defenses went down for a period of time. And then before long, both sides were exchanging very heavy missile fire. A lot of Iranian targets were hit. A lot of Israeli targets were hit. And then, of course, the final incident in that war was some sort of negotiated exchange where the U.S. struck Iranian nuclear facilities, and the Iranians hit a military base, and a U.S. military base that they'd already warned us it was going to be hit. So there's no casualties. And then it all just kind of came to an end, and Trump got his credit for his Nobel Peace Prize and all the rest of that stuff. So what happened this time, and it should be noted that there was very, very clearly plans for this to continue on to full-on regime change. This is the map of Iranian airspace on, I want to say, Wednesday night. You can see that was cleared out. There was flight data. Netanyahu left the country. He boarded Israel Air Force One heading towards Greece. Trump posted this: Iranian patriots, keep protesting, take over your institutions. Save the names of the killers and abusers. They will pay a big price. I've canceled all meetings with Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stops. Help is on its way. MIGA. And as this person jokes, he used MIGA for a clear reason, and the I is not for Iran here. Yeah, no kidding. But we've talked about this for many, many times on this episode. One of the things that were strangely occurring this time was this Jerusalem Post article saying that Israel is going to stay out of this one. They're going to let us fight the war for them. Israel itself was not planning to attack Iran. They were hoping to stay out of the conflict, help them stand fast. 2.5 weeks in demonstrations, blah, blah, blah. By the way, speaking of these thousands of protesters being killed, Scott Ritter made an interesting point about this. The Battle of the Bulge, over a month of fighting, America's bloodiest battle in World War II, the most modern lethal weaponry of the time, 19,000 dead. And you want us to believe 12,000 protesters were killed in 2 days. If you believe that, I've got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. So, we then suddenly, when it looked like a war was coming any moment now, we had this. Trump says, we have been told that the killing in Iran is stopping. It has stopped. There is no plan for executions. I've been told that. We will find out about it. And this guy on X posted, it is over, to which I believe I responded, either that or it's a feint for the real bombing to start, which is what happened last year. Remember that? Trump said he was going to not attack Iran and then immediately attacked Iran. That was like part of the sneak attack thing. So here's what I think happened. And I think the facts all back this up. They were hoping that the Iranian government was going to be in a much worse situation from the organized violent riots that were happening all over Iran. But Iran first shut down the internet and then also jammed Starlink, which is a technology that I think they very clearly got from the Russians, because it's technology the Russians are using all the time because Ukrainians are using Starlink. They can't completely knock it out, but they can make it very, very cumbersome and difficult to use. And with the internet off, the government had much of an easier time suppressing the riots. And at that point, and there was multiple articles, I don't have the articles handy, but there's multiple reports that said that President Trump was basically, he said, I want this to be quick and easy. I don't want it to be drawn out. I want it to be, if we're going to hit Iran, we're going to hit him decisively. And the military could not give him that assurance. They said, no, we can certainly hit him hard, but they can certainly hit back, or something like that. And Trump is, I think, very, very keenly aware he does not want that. He only wants easy wins. So, and the other thing that it seems likely happened, and there's been multiple reports that corroborate this, they're circumstantial, they might not be proven, but this comment from Trump that they've been assured the executions weren't happening, it's very likely that Russia and maybe other Iranian allies said, look, don't execute them, because it will force Trump to go to war. that will definitely happen. It will make it more difficult for Iran on the world stage to justify what they're doing. It'll be a big mistake. Don't do it. And apparently Iran is not because Iran now says we were never going to execute them. Yes, they were. They absolutely said they were going to. They were going to say the execution was going to start last Wednesday, and then they didn't. So I think the overwhelming facts of the matter are that the U.S.-Israeli sponsored coup didn't work out. They might have escalated, but it wasn't going to be easy. And Iran said, we're not going to execute the rioters. And so they said, okay, fine, let's call it off. I guarantee you the plans to go to war with Iran are not over. They are trying to regroup. There are still military assets heading to the region. It very well might only be on pause, and maybe only for a week. But every week is 1 week closer to the next election. And as I said last week, I'm surprised that whatever happened was going to happen before the new year. But we'll see. So the lovely epilogue of this all was this clip from Lindsey Graham. I got to play this. Hold on.
There are a lot of headlines out there that are, in my view, not accurate. President Trump's resolve is not the question. The question is, when we do an operation like this, should it be bigger or smaller? I'm in the camp of bigger. Time will tell. I'm hopeful and optimistic that the regime days are numbered. There are a lot of headlines out there that are.
And as someone on X commented, he said, you can just see the life force has been sucked out of Lindsey Graham by the lack of bombing. So any day Lindsey Graham is sad is a good day for humanity. But again, as I said, it may not last. Brian Burlak had a nice kind of wrap up on this. He says it's not a matter of if the U.S. will strike Iran, but when and how. That Brookings paper is the blueprint they've used since it was published. This is the plan. The plan is clear. The goal is regime change by way of economic coercion, terrorism, proxy war, and actual war, all in combination and repeated as often as necessary. There is no plan for peace, accommodation, or coexistence with Iran. In fact, I don't know if you saw, but Elon Musk just had X replace the Iranian flag with the Iranian monarchy flag. I wonder if that's still the case. I think maybe I wonder if they reverted it now that the coup has failed. I don't know. It's weird. Someone I saw posted on X that the Democrats, they go to no Kings protest and then they go over to the Yes Kings protest when they're talking about Iran. So I don't know. Go figure. Anyway, so that was the big thing this week, was we might have had a war with Iran. It still may happen next week. You never know. But we'll see. And then, of course, the other story, the other big thing this week is that Trump is closing in on Greenland. The Europeans put up a truly pathetic show of force, sending single-digit numbers of troops into Greenland, and the European officials are all putting out these really pathetic statements, and this is illegal under international law, and you can't do this, and da-da-da-da-da. I have no doubt Greenland will be ours by the end of this year. Question is how? How do we get it? Here's an article that's been going around everywhere. This is from Fox News. Trump's Greenland takeover would likely entail enormous price tag, $700 billion. Well, good thing I wasn't using that money. Were you guys using your money? We've got $700 billion for Greenland. What do we get for the $700 billion, by the way? Now, and I should say, I don't think we are going to need $700 billion to buy Greenland. I think if that offer is ever made, which it won't be, because where's that money going to come from? Who is going to appropriate that money? Nobody. But what exactly do we get for buying Greenland or stealing it, whichever we end up doing? The explanations for why we need Greenland are all complete nonsense. There is, as Trump keeps saying, we need to take Greenland or else Russia and China will. Why? I mean, first of all, they've given zero indication of that. What would Russia need Greenland for? They have the north of the rest of the world. What would China do with Greenland exactly? It's on the opposite side of the globe from them. For shipping routes? I mean, I guess, but shipping to where? Greenland? Everywhere else, China can ship to more directly. They have land routes. They have routes through the Pacific Ocean. Who needs the Arctic? Well, yeah, for the military. Oh, yeah, for the vast, ever-expanding Chinese empire. Well, we needed to have a missile defense interception system, because if Russia is to fire nuclear weapons at the United States, they would go over Greenland. So if we can just intercept them in Greenland, we'll be safe from their nuclear weapons. Folks, if there's a nuclear war, there is no defense. None. You understand this? They have hypersonic missiles, nuclear submarines, like everything. They now have nuclear powered nuclear missiles that can fly over the ocean for an extended period because they figured out how to do a closed loop nuclear energy process that doesn't generate nuclear waste. They just tested this like a couple of weeks ago. We talked about this, the Burevestnik missile, which, by the way, would probably have incredible civilian applications too. A clean nuclear reactor that can be that's like portable, that can be used on a missile. That's incredible. But anyway, the point being, they have thousands of nuclear weapons. If we have a nuclear war, we are all dead. Greenland will make zero difference in that. Rare earths. Greenland's like covered in ice. And oh, by the way, if Greenland becomes our territory, then all of the problems associated with mining, because rare earths aren't actually rare. They're really hard to mine because they're in small quantities in any given location. So what you have to do is dig up a ton of land and filter it all out. So if we own Greenland, then all the problems associated with digging up rare earths are the same problems you have digging them up in the United States. And here's the gist of it. And as someone summarized this nicely on the internet today, is if Greenland was really that valuable, it would have been contested long ago. There is a reason why Greenland was just sitting there for years and years and years and years. There is a clear reason why Trump wants Greenland. He wants to be the president that expands the United States territory in a big way. That's Trump. He said the other day, we talked about this on a show a couple weeks ago, the White House, when he was talking about the new White House ballroom, he said, I need to build monuments to myself because other people won't ever do it. Greenland is Trump's ultimate monument to himself. That is what this is all about. Now, it's also about humiliating Europe, and that I'm on board with 100%. I totally am. That's great. They deserve it. If they weren't absolute morons, they would know how to have avoided the situation in the first place. They would be able to react to it, You'd say, okay, listen, if you do this, NATO is over with, and we are no longer allies. And we mean it. And we will go to Greenland. We will stop. We can do kill us all. Now, they can't do that. They can't say these things because guess what? They have already made themselves completely energy dependent on the United States. What are they going to do? Boycott us? We cut off their LNG. Oh, sorry. That Nord Stream pipeline to Russia you had is gone. If they hadn't so completely blown their relations with Russia and to a lesser extent China, they could say, all right, look, you're going to put your tariffs on us. We're going to start buying more from China. We're respond by cutting tariffs from China. That's what we're going to do. But they can't do that because they're all so politically invested in the war with Russia. They thought that if they were just going to be our loyal vassals, Biden would call them allies. He knew they were our vassals. That we would never come for them. Well, I'm glad Trump had disabused them of that notion. But it should still be said, whatever and ultimately ends up happening will probably be illegal, probably immoral, bad for the people in Greenland. But it is what it is. So we'll see how that shakes out. But will it actually benefit us in any real way? No. And God knows how much it's going to end up actually costing. So that's Greenland for you. But again, it is certainly enjoyable to see all of these rotten European quislings squirm under the results of their own terrible decisions. And it's too bad for Europe because they will never recover from this. They are permanently out of the energy game forever. And too bad. That's what you get. Anyway, the other, of course, big thing is Venezuela. So I have to say, there has been this photo of I'll make this smaller. Here we go. Let me put this on the screen here. the Nobel laureate. Why is this so wide? Can I fix this? I can fix this. What's your name? Maria. There we go. Maria Machado, the recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize, has given her prize to President Donald J. Trump. In what has to be said is the second most pathetic, disgraceful display I've ever seen, at least ever seen this week. In what comes to mind this week, I suppose. Now, of course, Trump was snubbed by the Nobel Committee for the Peace Prize. Also, he didn't deserve it, but neither did she. So never mind. In fact, she is, I think, well, maybe not even the first, but she got the Nobel Peace Prize for encouraging the bombing of her country and the overthrow of the regime in her country. Well, whatever. So after that, remember, the next thing that happened was Trump kidnapped Maduro, and then immediately in the news conference, like right after that happened, immediately says, I'm not putting Machado in charge of Venezuela. He has since clarified the reason he does not. He said at the time he said she does not have the support, which is probably true. Trump gave an interesting answer also more recently. He said, look, I remember Iraq when we threw everybody in the government out and they went and created ISIS. And that's not a smart thing to do. I wanted to work with the current government because it'll minimize the problems we might have there. So actually kind of a smart answer from Trump. Although I still think the real reason is because she got the Peace Prize and he wouldn't want to put her in charge to spite her for it. But in an apparent attempt to earn Trump's favor, she gave her priceless Nobel Peace Prize to Donald Trump. Is there anything more pathetic than giving away your Nobel Prize to try to curry favor from Donald Trump? Well, yes, there is one thing more pathetic, and that's Trump accepting it. What kind of man does this? Like, can you even imagine, folks? Seriously? Like if someone were to give you a prize that was theirs, I mean, she didn't really earn it, but she kind of earned it. Wouldn't any normal human say, no, it's yours. You keep it. Like the Nobel Committee has actually said the prize is not really transferable, and it's like if someone were to give me the Heisman Trophy, no one's going to think I'm the Heisman Trophy winner. Like, who's falling for this? Nobody is. So why would Trump even accept it? And yet here he is. He's so proud. He's so proud to accept the Nobel Peace Prize. He actually, I thought the clip, but now I can't find it. He actually posted a video. It was the same moment when he was asked about why Machado wasn't going to be put in charge of Venezuela, and he said, because I don't think we should replace the whole government. He actually said, this person gave me the Nobel Peace Prize. He didn't refer to her by name. He forgot her name. He forgot her name. But even still, yeah. I mean, how embarrassing, Here's a funny take though. This is what WikiLeaks posted. Donald Trump accepted the Nobel Peace Prize. They put peace in quotes, from the awarded winner, Maria Machado. The fate of the $1.15 million monetary award remains outstanding. Now Julian Assange has actually filed a complaint saying that this is a misappropriation of the Nobel Committee's money. So they ask, will the monetary transfer to Machado be blocked as an unlawful gross misappropriation, as argued in Julian Assange's original filing? Will the Nobel Foundation have sent the $1 million to her victims killed by her incitement of President Trump to war? Nope, that will not happen. Will be taken to the Nordic region and sent to the people of Greenland to buy body bags. Very funny. But yeah, I mean, it is kind of funny, because I guess maybe the money hasn't been given to her yet. Well, if she's going to give the money away, will she give the money away? And that's question number one. So who knows? And I mean, honestly, who cares? I'm just kind of joking around here, but it is funny, pathetic, and very sad. One more thing, Venezuela related, because there is actually now this legal trial going on here. And did I lose the tab? Shoot. Well, I'm not going to find it, but somewhere it's on my X feed someplace. The U.S. government, i.e. Donald Trump, has posted a filing arguing why they can hold Maduro for various crimes. One of those crimes is that the government of Venezuela has displaced indigenous peoples in Venezuela. So, it was about the drug cartels, and it was about the oil, but to the Southern District of New York, the argument that Trump is making as to why they have kidnapped Maduro and charging him with all these crimes is because his policies have displaced the indigenous people of Venezuela. And ladies and gentlemen, that is apparently why we needed to go in. Am I going to be able to recover this tab someplace? I don't think I am. Well, that's too bad. Maybe I'll post a link in the description. Anyway, what else has happened this week? Here's an interesting thing. I mentioned Trump's approval rating is crashing and burning. So here is another comment that Trump made this week. This is from Reuters. Trump says, "It's some deep psychological thing, but when you win the presidency, you don't win the midterms." And then he says, "I accomplished so much that when you think that we shouldn't even have an election," of course, that's become the big part of the news story, is Trump saying we shouldn't even have an election because I'm just so great. I mean, that's a novel theory, isn't it? I'm so great, we don't need elections. Boy, the Democrats will love that precedent, won't they? But I would focus more on this explanation here. It's some deep psychological thing when you win the presidency, you don't win the midterms. Yeah, it's got nothing to do with broken promises, nothing like that, folks. Just, you win the presidency, you lose the midterms. It's nothing to do with Republicans doing nothing other than funding the NED. No, it's not that. It's not Trump neglecting the American people's problems and the riots at home because he's encouraging riots in Iran, doing the work for Israel, as he does every single week. Israel, Israel, Israel. No, it's not that. It's just a deep sea. It's us, folks. You see, we're the idiots who just can't reelect the party 2 years after the last election. We just can't. It's some deep psychological thing. Did you know that? Did you know? You elect a Republican, next year, bang, you flip to the Democrats. It's amazing how that works. Another sad story we have today. This was the U.S. Supreme Court 9-0. In this case, Trevor v. Montana. And Gun Owners of America has a nice summary of what happened. The Supreme Court ruled that 9-0, a warrantless welfare check in which the police shot Trevor Case in his own home was justified. Did I say Trevor? Case versus Montana. Because apparently police do not need probable cause to break into gun owners' homes without warrants and then shoot them. Unfortunately, even though we have, six Republican members, 6 Republican appointees of the Supreme Court, who might on occasion put out a pro-gun decision. But this just goes to show, who was it? Was it Alito or was it Scalia? Maybe, who said the Second Amendment's like a second-class right to this court. I mean, lamenting that. This didn't say it should be, but lamenting that seems to be the way the court goes. They do not treat the Second Amendment as a full-fledged right as they do the First Amendment. Well, this case just goes to show that as much as the Second Amendment is a second-class right in the eyes of the court, the Fourth Amendment is even lower on that rung. And when it comes to the government spying on you, invading your privacy, invading your home, and even shooting you, the Republican appointees and the Democrat appointees are in full agreement. There's that case. Here's another sad one for you. Scott Adams passed away. He had cancer, prostate cancer, I think it was. Look at this nice contrast here. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the founder of ISIS, a lifelong terrorist, described in his obituary as an austere religious scholar. Scott Adams who I think a lot of us loved as the cartoons for Dilbert. Very, very incisive criticism of corporate culture. Very clever, very meaningful. I mean, he was a deep thinker. He wrote multiple books. He was one of the most interesting thinkers of our time. I think it's a good word for it. Very, very unique, very different. Worth reading. And then more recently became known as one of the very, very, very first people to predict Trump becoming the president. I think it was like Ann Coulter, Scott Adams, and that was it in 2015. Nobody else thought Trump would win the presidency, let alone twice. And Scott Adams saw it from the get-go and made a lot of interesting essays about human nature and how it works and what how he did it. Again, brilliant thinking. But then you see here, their obituary for Scott Adams was disgraced Dilbert creator after his racist rant in 2023. Well, luckily, he was already at the end of his life when that cancellation occurred. By the way, you know what his racist rant was? You know what Scott's crime was? He was speaking hyperbolically. He was reacting to a poll that was taken on whether or not people agree with the sentiment, it's okay to be white, which apparently more than a quarter of Black Americans polled said was not okay. More than a quarter of Black Americans, according to this poll, said it was not okay to be white. Which Scott Adams rather hyperbolically said that would lead him to want to avoid Black people. Well, here's the thing, folks. Shoe on the other foot. Can you imagine for 1 second if more than a quarter of all white people said it was not okay to be Black? What people would be saying about white people then? But never mind that. Anyway, Scott Adams by that point had already made a fortune and was just fine enjoying the last 2 years of his life, despite being canceled. But anyway, just another commentary on how disgusting, disgraceful, and straight up evil our media is. All right. Last thing before we go. This is from Thomas Massey, who was actually posting from Laura Loomer. Laura Loomer, one of the most deranged people in general on the right, and of course now totally exposed as a hardcore Israel firster, total Zion Nazi. But Loomer posted this on her website, and this is she got Thomas Massey in the corridors of looks like the Cannon. No, it looks like the Rayburn Cannon, actually.
How's it going? Thank you. Wait, so Congressman,
here's the video.
In the last 2 weeks, how's it going? Thank you. Wait, so Congressman, in the last 2 weeks, you repeated AOC's talking points on Venezuela, and Jasmine Crockett has retweeted you. When will you change your party affiliation to Democrat?
I thought you knew. I vote with Republicans 91% of the time.
And
the 9% I don't, they're taken up for pedophiles, starting another war, or bankrupting our country.
I don't know about that, Congressman. We'll see.
Are we gonna impeach Pat Monty for not releasing?
So that was
How's it going?
Thomas Massey actually posted.
Wait, so Congressman, in the
imagine posting this attempted ambush and thinking it was a hit on me. I mean, just smash, bang, done. By the way, if you guys have been chatting, I've seen like no chats since like the beginning of the stream. So maybe it's something going on with my StreamYard. But anyway, yeah, Massey has this answer down pat. Yeah, I vote with Republicans 91% of the time. And when I don't, it's because they're passing bloated budgets, illegal wars, and protecting pedophiles. So good on Thomas Massey, one of the few people really sticking up for the American people. And of course, that's why they all hate him so much. Oh, Mark's still here. Good. So I guess it is working. Well, very good. I guess you guys have been just speechless from my presentation tonight. Well, folks, that will do it for us for this week. We will, I guess, have to see next week if the war in Iran is back on or if it is still postponed, hopefully still postponed. And we shall see if more interesting things happen in Washington. They won't, or what happens in Lansing. Time will tell, but here we are 1 week closer to the election. So until next time, guys, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you guys for all you do for liberty, even in these tough times. So until next time, peace.